our next major release is upcoming in October. That would be officially released by the end of the month. And it includes our first step to integrate data from other sources, and not just TM1. So the first one would be integrating data from ODBC connections. This in a new tab and go here. So as I said, this would be integrating ODBC connection into Apliqo UX. And as you can see here in my first example, I just have a simple table. It looks like a simple grid. But if I'm now going to go into the edit mode and then click on the cube settings, we would see that we actually have an SQL select statement here. And if I click on the refresh, I would actually get the result of this table. And the way to achieve this, we now, in a separate config file, you can add any ODBC connection that is installed or set up on the same server where Apliqo UX is installed. And once you added it to the settings service, you can specify any select statement, any valid SQL statement, and obviously I can now edit the query. And if I just want the employee ID and the region, I can edit the query, click on the refresh, and I would get just this result. And I can obviously change. In this example, I kind of set up two different databases, one which I named SAP, the other one is named Oracle. And if I simply switch to the other database, I can see that I have a pre-populated SQL statement with the default table that is defined to that ODBC connection. And if I actually click on the refresh now, I would get the result from the top 100 records from the departments table in the Oracle database, which I've set up. And obviously, I'm now going to close the screen. I would see the new table coming up. And if I just going to discard the changes, I would see the original table back in the result. Moving on to the second example, so a few more tricky stuff you can do with the SQL connection is you can use. If I'm just going to quickly open the here and look at the statement. At this time we added in the statement the word statement, and we can leverage the settings service values with the placeholders, both on the in this example. I'm just going to click on the refresh. I hope that I noticed before that there was some network issues at my locally here.
Yeah, I've just disabled your webcam, Tomer, just because you seem to be struggling with bandwidth from the bunker. So okay, everything's okay. I can still see your screen.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as you can see here, we're filtering the country, and we're also filtering the start year. And if I now actually going to close the edit mode, and I can change the filter value to Spain, as you can see, the table is being updated. Also to Italy. If I switch back to Mexico and, for instance, change the start after 2020, and I would just see the records that for employees that are at the start here with that relevant year. Another thing you can do, if I'm just going to switch back to 2018, you can also update the records or the SQL database. So if I now going to put here very big numbers, and we would, this is actually now has been updated, the SQL database. So if I, for instance, go back to the original screen, we would see here that this employee already has the salary that I just inputted in. And maybe, so yeah, you can usually update the data as well. And last but not least, you can also use charts that would render the data. So here in this example, if I just, in the select statement, I just selected the employee name and the salary. And if I just close that, we would see that in a simple column line chart, we see the employees with those salaries. So as you can see, this is a pretty good state of what we have with an ODBC connection. There's obviously going to be more improvements to it, and it's still kind of in an early stage, but this is a direction that we're definitely going to work on, and we're going to add more sources in the future. All right, moving on. So the next example that I wanted to share, and also will be obviously part of the next release, is the ability to export our any reports to a full active form. So as you might be aware, on the previous release, on the May release, we already exposed the export to a slice that we just get you a simple slice with DPRWs. Now on this release, we also included export as a full active form. Just to actually emphasize how this works, we have this nice tool here that is part of our demo environment called Storylane that you can actually use to leverage documentations on applications and training, etc., etc. So in this example, you can see how this will actually work. Once you edit this option to export to an active form, you can then you can use any TM1 add-on as perspective or Buffet or Slice in this specific example, which is the Q-based tool to Excel add-on. And once you click on the button to rebuild the sheet, you can set a full active form with the ability to expand and collapse the dimensions on the rows, and also to change the filter values of the dimensions, and then the report would be fully refreshed based on those reports, and all the different functionality of the formatting, and to add more columns, etc., etc. So this is like the first time where you can directly from Excel, from Apliqo UX, have a full report that you can then publish, and user can, obviously that would support write back, etc., etc. So yeah, quite neat functionality. Maybe another thing to mention is that something that we've been working on the last few months is to move our entire documentations and kind of user guidance into Confluence. Historically, we worked on screen steps, and now we introduce Confluence, so all the release notes are already here, including the update process, the bug fixes, technical requirements, etc., etc. But not just that, all the training materials has been rebuilt from you here, like the ads on table material, the power user for fundamentals and advanced. And we also leverage this tool that we call Storylane with those nice recordings of the screen, so it's really, really easy to follow and complete the trainings. And we have big plans to re-leverage this this Confluence site and kind of restructure all our documentation and to have much more content here in the near future. So stay tuned. All right, moving on. So the next example I want to, if I'm going to go back to the home page. So the next thing that we're going to be adding is the improvements for the TM1 drill functionality. So if I'm now just going to open the screen, and if this cell has a TM1 drill defined on the engine, historically you would just get a snapshot of the result without any flexibility to change the filters or to drill, to do expand and collapse, etc., etc. So now this is leveraging the cube viewer, and you have the full flexibility of doing the full analysis. So here on the ear dimension, I can, for instance, select all the ears, click on apply. Then obviously if I would select change the ear, I would see the different data for the different ears, and I can obviously also drag the ear dimension here to the bottom and get the full flexibility. So that's something that a lot of our customers ask for, and now is available. Okay, moving on. The next big thing that we added is a lot of improvements around for report developers and administrators. So we know that the wizard component is a component that is widely used, and in a lot of times you might have 10 or 12 steps. Each one of them might have 3 or 4 different substeps or more, and you might even have multiple people editing the screens at the same time. And historically, you can only save or discard the changes for the entire wizard without actually knowing all the steps that you would be modifying in this change. So we now restructure this a little bit. And first of all, we now have a global button to save and discard the changes. And as you can see here, when I click on the button, I get a small menu where I can see all the steps and the substeps that currently has pending changes. So in this example, I have 3 steps. And in step 2, I have 2 substeps. And I have pending changes in the first substep and the first substep of the second step, right? And now I can individually decide to save the changes on this substep. And if I do that, I can see that I save my changes, and I only now basically save the changes in the workbook that I'm kind of working on. And if I'm now going to open this pop-up again, I see that I only have pending changes on now substep 3 of the second step. And just to show maybe how this works, I can now go in here into the second step, and for instance, go into 2B and make a small modification here. It doesn't really matter. Just apply the changes here and open again the screen. Now I would see that I have also pending changes in substep 2B, and I can decide to publish all the changes on all the step or each one of the substep. And I still have the possibility, like before, to save all the changes or discard all the changes, right? So especially when you're working with multiple users, and again, you kind of potentially did your changes and didn't save them and went back after a few days, that would give you directly first where there are pending changes, and secondly, the ability to only save or discard just a few of them. Another thing that we added or improved is in the cube settings. So if I now going to launch the cube settings, and I'm just going to click here on the grid 1 to get the options of the widgets. We added, first of all, the title and the info. So now I can simply directly from here change this to grid 5 test, and that would update automatically the title. And obviously I can add here the info and populate the info value that was missing before. And another thing that you could do before is also change the position. So I can, for instance, change now the position here to 5. And if I'm just close that and basically go here, and I would see that the grid 5 table is now on the last position, right? Another thing that we improved is if we now gonna click here on the product dimension and look at the MDX window. So first of all, we made the MDX box slightly bigger, so it has more visibility when you have relatively long MDXs. But then in addition, you now have the option to launch on a full screen or relatively bigger screen with some color coding. And obviously here I can edit the MDX, so just to make it slightly nicer. And if I want to actually replace here the value and put something here on the settings service, I can click on Control Space. That will give me the all the settings service values which are available. I can simply click this, click on Save, and that would update the MDX. So yeah, hopefully all of those changes would be appreciated and would make your life easier while creating pages. Okay, the next, that was the kind of the main highlight from the upcoming October release. I also want to share a few updates that we've added in the May release this year that you might have not seen yet. So something that is also been missing, also like pretty much from day one in the UX, we had the ability to merge widgets horizontally, one next to each other, and to create those multiple slices glued one next to each other. And now we also have the ability to merge them vertically. So in this specific case, I have two widgets, one showing the region dimension, and then have the months dimension here, sharing the months dimension on the columns, with the second widget here that has the version dimension, and then have also the months on the column. So obviously, if I'm now going to change the column widths, the entire table would be aligned, and you can do all the other functionality. So that's a powerful combination. And another quite big feature that we added that really allows you to build application in a different way. Also, from a kind of an admin perspective, can save a lot of time and chaos on even designing the TM1 model. And this is where we introduced the virtual dimensions. And what do I mean by that? I'm just going to go here to edit mode again and click on settings. And now going to click on the edit dimension, and I'm just going to select, for instance, the region dimension. So historically, if I already had the region dimension set as part of the global filters, I would only be able to edit once and use it once. And if I want to kind of use it more than once, I would have to create alternative hierarchies. Where here in this specific example, I can give it a unique key, and click on the global filters. And just like that, I created a new drop down in my global filter that is called region unique key, and I can obviously give it a different name, but in fact is based on the region dimension elements. So I can now just select any list of elements and obviously select any one of the basically aliases that exist. And if I click now on apply and close the pop-up, I will get here a new filter values that I can obviously now use with this setting service values in my reports, and then basically create those cool options where in this specific example, like cascading selections, where I select the main region, and that would give me on the second selection the children of those elements, right?
And obviously the benefit of that is from a TM1 developer, you don't have to be creating extra dummy dimensions, and you don't have the challenges of that extra dimension being inserted in another intersect into the MDX, which might make data entry impossible for your users, for example. So it's lots of benefits for building apps.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even to emphasize on that, another option that we added is you don't even like those list of elements doesn't even have to exist in TM1. So you can even create those full custom lists. And in this example, we created this custom list, which called we created 3 elements: clothing, bikes, and accessories. And with nice kind of HTML tags, we gave them icons. And as you can see here, those like 3 elements, or this dimension doesn't even exist in TM1 at all. And you can still use this to drive the selections of the other widgets, right? So yeah, quite powerful combination. Okay, and last and not least is the status bar. So something that a lot of people use from Excel. Now, when you basically multi-select any one of more than 2 cells, you would automatically get the average, the sum, the maximum, the mean, and the count. And if you do it on views, you would also get it directly here on the title of the application. So also quite useful. A lot of time you had to do it like somewhere in a formula and export it to exactly that. So that's something you can also do now. Okay, that was the kind of the main features I wanted to share with you today. Are there any questions?
Okay. if we just sort of understand our audience, I'll just sort of see if we're talking to people who know the product or not. We'll just give people a few seconds to answer. Okay, I think we can assume that everybody in the session is a customer then. All right, and I'll jump back to the other poll that we had open, and given that we know people are customers, the first feature that we showed on SQL sort of integration or ODBC data sources directly in your application without having to stage it first or do a TM1 drill through. If people can sort of already think about what that means, is it something you already want, or is it something that now you've seen it you want, or you're indifferent? Okay, well, that's great. At least we know we're working on the right things, Tomer.
Yes.
In terms of time, we're still good. Still got 6 minutes to go. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, I've got one preloaded question. We've talked about the October release, Tomer. When is the October release going to be released?
Yeah, so we're planning to have a beta release in this week, and if there's not going to be anything critical that we find, then by the end of next week, the official release will be out.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming through, so we'll just give it another minute. If anybody has one, feel free to ask.
Yeah. I apologize if the audio is not clear enough. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the session. And yeah, if you have any questions to us, feel free. And you know how to reach us, I hope.
Okay, all right. I don't think we're going to get any more questions. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Don't forget to go to the merchandise and get your great new available t-shirts that or whatever tickles your fancy about Horizon. And don't forget that any profits that go to that go directly to the Manny Perez Scholarship Fund as well. Okay, we do have a question. Could we have more examples of full MDX? I guess in the demo application that would sort of mean. So
yeah,
I think yes, we can manage that. Let's do that. Okay, and everyone, don't forget to include your feedback. I'll just put that through now at the end. So don't forget the feedback for the session, and thank you very much for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of Horizon, and do good TM1. See you later.
See you later.